In today's brief, we'll talk about the pace of the counteroffensive, the 9 lives of Kyrylo Budanov, and Yevgeny Prigozhin being petty, again. I'm Linnea, and today is Wednesday, June 21st, 2023, which is National Indigenous Peoples Day here in the United States. You're listening to the Ukraine War Brief podcast, where we bring you up to speed on the war in Ukraine in about 20 minutes or less. Let's get started with the news in Ukraine from the front. The Institute for the Study of War, or ISW, assessed that the Ukrainian counteroffensive effort was slowing in order to reassess tactics, but that operational pauses are a normal part of any counteroffensive. Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, or NSDC, of Ukraine, Oleksiy Danilov, assured that there are no deviations from the counteroffensive and that everything is going according to the developed and approved plan. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky admitted that battlefield progress has been, quote, slower than desired, but added that, quote, some people believe that this is a Hollywood movie and expect results now. It is not, end quote. Ukrainian forces conducted counteroffensive operations in at least 3 areas of the front line, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, or GSAFU. Russian mill bloggers reported that Ukrainian troops attacked northwest, northeast, and southwest of Bakhmut on June 19th, and claimed that Ukrainian forces advanced near Krasnopolivka, just north of Soledar. The GSAFU also reported that Ukrainian troops had partial success in the Melitopol and Berdyansk directions in the areas of Novodarivka, Pryutne, Makarivka, Rivnopil, Novodanilivka, and Robotyne over the past day. Reported Russian losses at the front have almost doubled, with the GSAFU claiming that over 1,000 Russian troops and another helicopter were eliminated on June 19th. Total estimated losses among Russian forces, which includes killed in action, wounded in action, prisoner of war, and missing, are now over 220,000 since February 24, 2022. Ukrainian forces continue to advance on the southern front from newly liberated Piatychatki to Zherebyanka in the Zaporizhia Oblast, where fire control over the main Russian roads has helped Ukrainian forces repel counterattacks on Piatychatki. Heavy fighting continues in the Liman direction in the areas of Yampolivka and the Serebryansky forest, and Ukrainian forces are reportedly in defensive positions in Liman and Bakhmut. Let's move on to the home front. Russia launched 8 S-300 anti-aircraft missiles at the Zaporizhia region on June 20th and 35 Shahed drones, of which 32 were reportedly shot down by air defense. Overnight last night, 6 drones were launched from the north and successfully intercepted over the Khmelnytsky region. Russian forces fired on rescue workers in Kherson as they were cleaning up mud, killing an employee of the State Emergency Service and wounding 8, 6 of whom are in serious condition. 109 explosions were reported in Sumy Oblast yesterday, damaging private homes, cars, and outbuildings. While the water level is gradually decreasing, 21 settlements in the Kherson region remain flooded following the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam, according to the State Emergency Service. 17 of the settlements are in temporarily occupied areas. Prosecutors served a notice of suspicion to the head of Kyiv's Municipal Department for Security yesterday after 3 people were killed during a Russian air attack because they were unable to get into a bomb shelter. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko claims that he and his administration are experiencing political pressure, implying that it was the, quote, central government doing the pressuring. Klitschko said, quote, there is a fierce campaign to discredit the Kyiv city government and me personally. Relentless searches paralyze the work of city departments and services. Chaos is being introduced into the capital's wartime management, and critical infrastructure facilities are not able to keep up with their normal workload. The same documents are being requested again and again. End quote. According to The Economist, Russia has tried to assassinate the head of the Defense Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Kyrylo Budanov, at least 10 times, including 2 missile strikes on the Defense Intelligence headquarters in Kyiv. Needless to say, they have not been successful. 6.3 million Ukrainians have fled the country due to the war, according to Caroline Lindholm-Billing, representative of the UN High Commission for Refugees. This is the largest flow of refugees that has been registered in such a short period of time since the Second World War. Now to the occupied territories. While it appears that the media blackout in the Kherson region has relaxed somewhat, we will still err on the side of caution and refrain from reporting on evacuation efforts unless announced by Ukrainian government officials. The United Kingdom Ministry of Defense Intelligence Agency reported that Russia continues to, quote, expend significant effort building defensive lines deep in rear areas, especially on the approaches to occupied Crimea, end quote. This indicates Russian command continues to see control of the peninsula as a political priority and has assessed that Ukrainian forces are capable of directly engaging occupation forces in Crimea. According to Kyrylo Budanov, who is clearly neither dead nor severely injured, Russian forces have mined the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Quote, "The worst thing is that the cooler was mined. If they," he means Russian forces, "take it down, there's a good chance there's going to be a lot of trouble." End quote. We received a message from one of our followers regarding a civilian prisoner of war. Bogdan Ziza is a Crimean artist who, after the start of the full-scale invasion, poured yellow and blue paint over the local administration in Crimea. For this, Russia wants to sentence Ziza to 15 years in prison. As a further protest against the regime, Ziza announced a hunger strike, which is now in its 12th day. Visibility is critical in ensuring the best chance of humane treatment for those who have been imprisoned, so we felt it was important to bring Ziza's situation to the podcast. His sister has set up an Instagram account to spread awareness. You'll find it linked in the description below. Please share it widely. Let's take a look at the news outside Ukraine, starting with the Russian Federation. An explosion was reported in an armor factory in Tambov, Russia, killing 4 and injuring 12. Kremlin-affiliated Russian tech giant Yandex claimed that international sanctions against Russia prevented the company from providing the Russian Federal Security Service, or FSB, with user data in compliance with Russian security law. A Moscow court ordered Yandex pay a 2 million ruble fine for non-compliance. Roscosmos, Russia's state space agency, has started using movie-style advertisements to recruit for a militia being mobilized to fight in the war in Ukraine. Russian Minister of Defense Sergei Shoigu stated, quote, "According to our information, the leadership of the armed forces of Ukraine plans to carry out strikes on the territory of the Russian Federation, including Crimea, using HIMARS and Storm Shadow missiles," end quote, threatening to strike decision-making centers in Ukraine if Crimea is attacked. There's some more petty drama in the rivalry between the Russian Ministry of Defense, or MOD, and PMC Wagner Group leader Yevgeny Prigozhin. Apparently, Prigozhin drafted his own so-called contract in response to the Russian MOD's requirement that members of PMC Wagner and other, quote, volunteer formations sign contracts with the Russian MOD by July 1st. The contents of Prigozhin's document haven't been made public, but it's likely yet another effort to undermine the MOD and Shoigu. There's a lot of chatter in the Russian social media space right now about a video published a few days ago showing a Ukrainian special operations mission into a series of Russian trenches behind the front line. One of the Russian soldiers bears a striking resemblance to Russian mill blogger Semyon Pegov of War Gonzo. Let me be very clear. There is no confirmation that Semyon Pegov was killed or wounded in that trench. The information that is currently available to us shows that the War Gonzo Telegram page and Twitter account have continued posting content, including a response to rumors of Pegov's death, with a photo of Pegov himself in a winter jacket and gloves from late last fall. At the time of recording, it is purely speculation, but it is technically possible. We're not comfortable saying one way or the other without further confirmation from legitimate sources. In European news, 3 Ukrainian prisoners of war have been returned from Hungary and are being provided with all possible support, according to Foreign Ministry spokesman Nikolenko. Gentle reminder that Hungary is still reportedly holding in isolation 8 Ukrainian prisoners of war transferred by Russia without Ukraine's knowledge. France is now reported to support Ukraine's bid to join NATO in an attempt to pressure Russia into negotiating an end to the war, allegedly concerned that Kyiv will struggle to liberate all its territory. Latvia announced at the Ukraine Recovery Conference in London that it will send all of its military helicopters to Ukraine after already having provided military aid worth more than 1% of the nation's GDP. The European Union has approved the 11th package of sanctions against Russia, according to Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission. Von der Leyen tweeted, quote, "It will deal a further blow to Putin's war machine with tightened export restrictions, targeting entities supporting the Kremlin. Our anti-circumvention tool will prevent Russia from getting its hands on sanctioned goods." End quote. Let's talk about news worldwide. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced that he would set out a new assistance package for Ukraine later today at the Ukraine Recovery Conference. We'll be able to talk more about it in tomorrow's episode. The Russian MOD claims the U.S. is building special drones that can release infected mosquitoes far behind enemy lines as a new type of bioweapon to be used against the Russian army. Because everyone knows mosquitoes are super easy to control and can be trained to bite only Russians. Obviously. While the U.S. has not announced any transfers of F-16 fighter aircraft from its own stock, the U.S. State Department reports that it supports other allies intent to deliver the aircraft to Ukraine. Stan Brown, the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of Political Military Affairs, emphasized that the transfer has to be, quote, holistic, including training for both pilots and maintenance engineers. 41 companies have pledged to hire 250,000 refugees, including Amazon, Marriott International, and Microsoft, as announced at the 10th European Business Summit in Paris on Monday. Slovakia joined 32 other countries and the European Parliament in recognizing the Holodomor as a genocide of the Ukrainian people. Let's briefly talk military tech. Natalia Sad, spokesperson for Ukraine's state-owned defense conglomerate Ukroboronprom, posted on social media an undated photo of herself with Ukrainian Army Commander-in-Chief Valery Zaluzhny, Air Force Commander Mykola Oleshchuk, and Ukroboronprom's Yuri Husyev, captioned, quote, "After the successful 1,000-kilometer use of our drone." End quote. Interesting. That's very interesting. That's the brief for today. Remember to check your sources and don't fall for propaganda. Join us on YouTube and TikTok for more Ukraine content and live news reports, and please consider supporting our work on Patreon. You'll find all the links in the description. We'll be back tomorrow with more updates. Until then, stay safe, everyone. Myrного неба вам.